So the reason why I just keep a little bit of an eye on local politics, because I know most of it's just white noise. Most of it is just white noise, that's all it is. Barbarianism. But I study more geopolitics. It's because I not like to, it displeases me. But it's the only way you will see where we fit on the geopolitical stage, how we fit the crimes, how the crimes fit us, where we fit, where it shows, it unearths and shines a light on the whack-a-mole politics that's going on here and how it all actually connects to a global conspiracy. Like, what is a conspiracy? What is it to conspire? Conspiracy usually comes somewhere around within the Espionage Act. A conspiracy is two or more people plotting a crime of some sort. To enrich themselves, to benefit themselves, or to put others in harm's way, or to siphon from one demographic of society to another. You can't see that. One of my old customers drives a truck. Now, you probably heard it. As long as this is going to Katie Phang, Epstein cover-up unravels as Trump DOJ, Department of Justice, desperately hides the truth. Epstein transparency fight continues 7 years later. 7 years. If you ever wanted some kind of fairly obvious in-your-face, poke-in-the-eye evidence that our government's as guilty as sin and they're all over it, they're up to their neck in it, it's their silence on it. Not just their silence on it, but their willingness to do business with the United States government and the Epstein class. Not just do business with them, hold their hands, la-di-da, kumbaya, in ethnic cleansing genocide in other countries that have never posed a threat to us. Since when has Palestine posed a threat to us? Really? The only threat we have is what's already within our borders. Importer crisis. Our problems are imported. Somebody had to import them. Let's change the word immigration to importing. Import-export. They've imported a crisis and exported our sovereignty. $7 years. The silence is deafening. Oh, did you see my old scar there? Guess what? That's on my arm, not yours. That's how much I really don't care what you think. I care what you do or do not do. Left and right, and then there's right and wrong.
19. A man named Jeffrey Epstein was indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. If you go to the DOJ website, you'll see the press release. It's titled, Jeffrey Epstein charged in Manhattan federal court with sex trafficking of minors. Again, dated July 8th, 2019. Then U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Berman, announcing, alongside William Sweeney Jr., Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the FBI, as well as James O'Neill, Commissioner of the NYPD, that Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested just 2 days prior, on July 6, 2019, and charged with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. The unsealed indictment alleged that between 2002 through 2005, Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploited and abused dozens of underage girls by enticing them to engage in sex acts with him in exchange for money. Epstein allegedly worked with several employees and associates to ensure that he had a steady supply of minor victims to abuse, and paid several of those victims themselves to recruit other underage girls to engage in similar sex acts for money. Epstein committed these offenses in locations including New York, Palm Beach. Epstein, this is hard. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman saying, Jeffrey Epstein, quote, abused underage girls for years, operating a scheme in which girls he victimized would recruit others for Epstein to exploit and abuse. Epstein exploited girls who were vulnerable to abuse, enticed them with cash payments, and escalated his conduct to include sex acts, often occurring at his residence on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. While the charged conduct is from a number of years ago, the victims, then children, and now young women, are no less entitled to their day in court. My office is proud to stand up for these victims by bringing this indictment, end quote. The FBI saying during this press release, quote, we want to hear from you if you have been victimized by Jeffrey Epstein or anyone who may have information about his alleged criminal behavior. Please call us. Regardless of the age you are now or whatever age you were then, no matter where the incident took place. The bravery it takes to call us might empower others to speak out about the crimes committed against them. In the eyes of the FBI, the victims will always come first. It goes on to cite to the unsealed indictment with more specificity, including the allegations that Epstein's victims were as young as 14 years old at the time he abused them. That Epstein knew many of his victims were under the age of 18. That Epstein worked with others, including employees and associates, who facilitated his conduct by, among other things, contacting victims and scheduling their sexual encounters with Epstein at the New York residence and the Palm Beach residence. And then it goes on to describe the massages, sex acts, the recruitment, the grooming. Epstein, at the time age 66, was charged with one count of sex trafficking of minors, which carried a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison, and one count of conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking of minors, which carried a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Interestingly, it goes on to note that Epstein's prosecution was being handled by the office's Public Corruption Unit. Think about that for a second. The SDNY was using its Public Corruption Unit to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein, which speaks volumes about the kind of universe of possible additional co-conspirators and co-defendants, does it not? Notably, in the names listed as assistant U.S. attorneys assigned to this prosecution is the name Maureen Comey, in charge of the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the reason why I wanted to read this to you is, of course, since this day, July 8th, 2019, we find ourselves with some modicum of additional new information, and yet we still remain greatly in the dark about so much more important information. A few things I want to highlight about this press release that I think just screams of just platitudes, false platitudes. What is the phrase? It screams of this kind of, fake. I wanna be, the true North Star of justice here. And yet, what did we end up seeing happen subsequent to this? Nothing. 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 When I see something that describes these counts, one count of sex trafficking of minors, and then the second conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors, it tells me the obvious. One, Epstein sex trafficked minors. But two, and perhaps more importantly, he did it as a part of a conspiracy. In the indictment lays out very clearly that Epstein had the assistance of enablers, facilitators, recruiters, fellow perpetrators, fellow abusers, employees. And yet, as we sit here today, July 8th, 2026, only 2 people have ever been criminally charged and prosecuted. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein is mysteriously dead. Ghislaine Maxwell, not so mysteriously hanging out in a club fed in Texas, courtesy of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is just a week away from trying to go through a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing to become the permanent Attorney General of the United States. So my husband and I were recently talking about life insurance, and I thought it was an important conversation because I'm about to celebrate a birthday in a few weeks, and we have a daughter, and you want to hedge. You want to hedge against the bad because you always want to be prepared. And it reminded me about when my late father passed away and how it impacted my mom and how she felt financially about the stability of the rest of her life. It really means a lot to be able to speak to you about Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy. It's 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds. You can apply in minutes and get same day coverage. You can get up to $3 million in coverage with some policies as low as $30 a month. And let me be clear, there's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. So take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Phang, Phang. That's my last name. That's ethos.com/Phang, ethos.com/Phang. Application times may vary and rates may vary. You hear the pledges that came from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York, one of the most powerful U.S. Attorney's offices in the United States. You hear from the FBI Assistant Director, we want you to know victims will always come first. And yet, has that really borne fruit? It's not like the federal prosecutors in this case moved against others afterwards. It's not like the FBI moved against others after this arrest and indictment of Jeffrey Epstein. It's as if they thought that the capstone achievement had been reached. Despite acknowledging factually in this press release and in the indictment against Epstein that this was a pyramid of conduct. This wasn't just Jeffrey Epstein as a lone wolf, outlier criminal doing this. It also acknowledges that there were several locations, not even just in New York and in Florida, where he committed these offenses. I mean, what about Florida? What about exposing what was happening down in Florida? It is mind-boggling to me that we sit here, you and I, we sit here, how many years later? 7? To the day when Jeffrey Epstein was indicted. And I don't know. It's not like there's been a lot of progress. I will say this because it's worth saying. Do you want to know where there has been progress? There has been progress in the Epstein, Maxwell, and others, survivors coming together and creating an incredibly strong, beautifully courageous community.
You, just you, building your app. on base 44. Describe it. And it's real. One thought leads to more thoughts. Layer by layer, taking shape. When you need your tools, bring them in.
That has been standing together in their truths to be able to demand the transparency and justice they deserve. There has been a movement of people like you that recognize that this Epstein sex trafficking, international in nature, stain on the collective global history should never happen again and deserves total blowout exposure. To hell with risk of embarrassment of somebody simply because they have money, means, and influence. We don't protect child predators. We don't protect pedophiles. We don't protect child rapists. But you know who does? Convicted felon Donald Trump, putting aside the implications of Trump within the Epstein files themselves. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. He protects pedophiles, child predators, child rapists. Because as we sit here today, July 8th, 2026, he continues to defy a federal court order to turn over a limited subset of the Epstein files as have been produced by the Department of Justice to date. And he claims it's because he wants to protect the victims and the survivors. It's not laughable. It's a slap in the face of the survivor community that has been demanding since before Pam Bondi, since before Todd Blanche, since before Felon Trump, since before they have been demanding truth, transparency, and justice. And there's this active conspiracy to conceal and cover up and to prevent the full files from being released to the public. So what an anniversary we celebrate today, huh? July 8th, 2019, the day that the charges against Epstein were announced. The fight's still going on. And whether it takes more lawsuits, whether it takes more attempts to hold somebody like Todd Blanche in contempt of court orders, whether it takes more oversight committees and congressional select committees, whatever it takes, it's what we have to do. But the people in the federal agencies that are supposed to have been fighting for these victims and survivors since, let's go back to even Florida, to the early mid-2000s, they should be the ones clamoring to be first in line to be able to stand up and protect these victims and survivors. And yet those incredibly powerful federal agencies like the Department of Justice and the FBI repeatedly fail those survivors. Because at the end of the day, they're either following directives and orders to protect those elite in the Epstein orbit, those in that rarefied air that I speak of that have escaped liability, culpability, and any type of responsibility to date, or all of what they have said since the beginning of this has just been lip service to those survivors. Either way, we're not waiting. I'm not waiting for those federal agencies to get their shit together. Because it's past the time that these files be made public. Be mad, be outraged, demand accountability. It's the only way forward. I'm off to rattle cages. Okay.
How can you have any respect for our so-called law system? We don't have any. Our legal system, our court system, our constabulary, judiciary, our politicians, our councils. Nobody's calling for transparency into that, and they all want to hop up and down about a Transparency Act. It's an act. It's about all it is. putting on a show. And they're all still going and doing business as usual with the Epstein class. You do realise, people, that because we are the West, we are looked down upon as the Epstein class, aiders and abettors of. It's in our culture, and it is in our culture. The founding fathers were pedophiles in America. Do you know what buggery is? It's the act of anal sex between two men, right? That's buggery. It was a charge once. Why? Because the redcoats, okay, the British naval officers were more like bum bandits. They were raping the prisoners on the ships because they were getting lonely. Like, it was that much of it. It was rampant. It was that rampant. They had to make it a part of actual legislation, not just law, biblical law, that no man should lay with another man as a man lays with a woman. They actually had to create a prosecution about it because there was that much anal sex going on at Port Arthur and the other prisons in the colonies, colonialism days. And it was being perpetrated against the prisoners by the prison guards, mostly. That's why Tasmania was the last place on earth to decriminalise being gay. Sexual depravity is from the top down, right across the West, and it's fucking rampant. Look it up. Do you know how many women get out of traffic infringements by brushing their teeth? I'd hate to think how many. There used to be a copper here, female copper, fat ugly pig, called Penny the Pig, we called her. Penny the Pig. And she would pull blokes over, see that they were strapping young lads, and she'd cut it out with them if you was willing to stick your dick in a pig. If you was willing to go down on a pig. It's a fact. Penny the Pig. Everyone knows Penny the Pig stories. It's never stopped. So what are the police other than a pedophile protection racket? What is the judiciary other than a pedophile protection racket for their superiors? What is our government doing? Doing business with pedophiles. Obviously, they're pedophiles. But just keep going and blaming your neighbours for everything that's wrong and whoever's beneath you, that you think is beneath you. Don't hold anyone to account. Go and protest the Muslims. Go on. But don't dare speak up and call things out for what they are. Oh God, no. I want to hear a politician actually say shit and mean it. Malcolm bloody Roberts Pauline's mate, running partner, or raping partner, whatever you want to call it, or the rape in the country. He acknowledged the Wood-Raw Commission and then dropped it like a hot spud. I've spoke to his office, people in his office about it on the phone. According to one woman there, apparently the Wood-Raw Commission was just 28 names scribbled on a piece of paper by some anonymous person. No, it was a list from the Australian Federal Police given to Bill Heffernan because the police were powerless to do anything about it. One of the names was a previous prime minister. It's not stopped. It hasn't stopped. It's still going, people. Think about it. Otherwise, they'd be hopping up and down saying we're not going to do any business with the United States until they clean up their Department of Justice, till they clean up their Pedophile Act. Their silence is deafening, isn't it?